Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Clark and I will be talking to you today about English literature at A level. So first things first, the exam board we use is Pearson edXL and our course is split into 4 separate parts. The first component is drama, and in this component we study 2 separate plays. So for example, myself and Mrs. Gunn, we have chosen to teach our students Hamlet by William Shakespeare and Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, but Miss Johnston and Mr. Wright have chosen to teach Othello by William Shakespeare and A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams. Now we have to look at all sorts of things like characterization, how these plays were received by their audiences, and we have to consider kind of how all of this was put together to create these incredible dramatic effects. Now in the second component, which is prose, you study 2 texts but you compare them. Okay, so again, myself and Mrs. Gunn, we chose to teach Beloved by Toni Morrison and The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, but Miss Johnston and Mr. Wright chose to teach A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini and Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. Now these texts, you'll compare them based on a theme. So Beloved and The Picture of Dorian Gray, the theme is the supernatural and how writers are using and working with sort of the horror genre, the supernatural genre, to kind of tap into the kind of the psyche of their audience's time. And with A Thousand Splendid Suns and Tess of the D'Urbervilles, the theme is women, and it's about how women are kind of treated and presented in those texts, but also in their separate times as well. When we get to the third component, that is poetry. Now, in this one, you will study 2 separate anthologies. So the first anthology is what all students will do, is an anthology of contemporary poetry. So it's all poetry from 2001 to 2010, which is called Poems of the Decade. And the other anthology, again, will be dependent on what your teacher chooses to teach you. So for example, Mrs. Gunn, she has chosen to teach the modernists, and Mr. Wright will teach the metaphysicals. Okay, and that second anthology is very much based in a particular time period or a particular movement of literature. And the reason we study these 2 very different aspects of poetry is to give you that really kind of broad understanding of what the poetic form can do. You know, how it engages with audiences, how it impacts how we think, and how it presents the world around us. Our fourth component is coursework. Now this is something that students will not have had a chance to do at GCSE English, but students will have this brilliant opportunity to complete an extended piece of writing. It's 3,000 words, but they can choose any 2 texts and they can compare them. It's really exciting, students really love it, and it is a brilliant independent piece of work that they can choose to do. Now, the next part is all about assessment, okay, and this is what the course will look like and how you'll be examined. So the first component, drama, the paper is 2 sections. You'll be questioned on Shakespeare in section A, and then the other play that you do in section B, and that's 60 marks. The second paper is prose. You'll just write 1 essay, but it's 1 comparative essay between the 2 texts that you will have studied. And the third paper is the poetry paper, but there are 2 sections to this one. So you'll answer 1 question where you will compare a poem from the post-2000 poetry collection with 1 unseen poem. And section B is you'll do 1 essay question on the second anthology that you do, and that is 60 marks. You will also be assessed on the coursework, okay? Now, again, this is all down to the student. You will have to work really hard by yourself, very much independently, to complete this essay. But it is incredibly rewarding. Now, that's worth 60 marks, but it is 20% of the qualification. Okay, so there are lots of different ways in which you can be successful here. Now, in terms of the students we're looking for, the types of students we're looking for, the students need these kind of 4 key things. You must have a real strong essay writing kind of background, all right, and the will to develop your style. There are lots of essays. As you know, there are 3 exams and a piece of coursework, so we will be honing and working on your essay writing skills. And it's a requirement of the course to be able to write essays really, really well. You must have a love of literature and reading. You should be really comfortable talking about the books that you love, the text that we're studying, and the wider reading that you complete, because that's a huge part of our course. The third point is you must have a critical eye. Now, what I mean by this is we have to be able to apply the readings of other people, of philosophers, of writers, of reviewers, to the text we're studying to help us build our understanding of those texts. So we have to be very evaluative, very critical, okay? And the fourth thing I'd say is you must have a real interest in politics, in philosophy, sociology, the arts, history, because we have to be able to look at literature through loads of different kind of lenses. And actually, literature can't exist just by itself. It is always informed by all of those different things, okay? Now, in terms of some of the work we do on our course, we do all sorts. There's a lot of essay writing, as you can see on the right, but something I've got students to do is a creative essay to kind of kick off your study, whereby I give you an essay on a topic, and there's no real structure. There's no sense of what you absolutely should and shouldn't do. It's just an exercise to get you really thinking about how to formulate your ideas in creative ways. And on the left, as you can see, I do a lot of collaborative work. So this is a mind map that a lot of my students worked on together, based on Dr. Faustus. So it really is, it's not just about essay writing. It's very collaborative. It's very kind of based in discussion, and it's incredibly rewarding. In terms of where this can take you, English literature, it can take you incredibly far, into areas such as journalism. If you want to, work for a newspaper as a writer or an editor, this will give you a solid background in how to pick apart those pieces of writing. It can lead to advertising and media, because English is all about kind of how audiences are impacted by what they are seeing, what they're viewing. Obviously, it could lead to writing, reviewing. It's a very popular choice for students who want to go on to law, because again, it's all about that critical eye. It's about the argument, the debate that goes along with the subject. A lot of students might want to go into politics. As I said, it's about the art of discussion, the art of debate, the art of expressing ideas. You might want to go into performing arts, into the theatre, or into film or television, because again, it gives us this English literature gives us a really nice background in the arts, and kind of art through time. And lastly, it can help you with editing, especially you're working on your own essays, on your coursework. So it will give you that really kind of critical eye for editing your work, and possibly, if you take it further, into other people's work as well. Now, a lot of questions we're asked are here on the screen. So a lot of students say, "Oh, well, actually, are there going to be any trips to see the plays that we study?" We have in the past, and we are always looking for opportunities to do so, because it is incredibly important to see what we're reading on the page live on the stage. In terms of homework, we start with a lot of wider reading tasks to kind of get you used to reading academically and critically. But then as the year goes on, it will be very much essay based and context based as well, on top of that wider reading. A question I'm always asked is, how much reading do I have to do? It is a lot. So if you think about it, there are 6 set texts plus wider reading and the reading and research you'll need to undertake for your coursework. So if you don't like reading, or if you aren't willing to do it, really think about if this is the right A level for you. All right, if you love reading, this is the perfect choice for you. Now, another thing that's important is there's a very big difference between A-level English language and literature and A-level English literature. Now, in English literature, we study a full range of texts: poetry, prose, drama. We don't do non-fiction. Okay, you can choose to look at non-fiction for your coursework, but we don't study it as a component to be examined on. There's also a really large focus on studying literature from a critical viewpoint. Now, what I mean by that is it's about looking at the ideas of others, applying them to our work, and seeing how that fits into our view of the text. And that kind of moves us on to looking at literature from a university perspective. Okay. Now, when it comes to English language and literature, there's a lot more focus on non-fiction, and there's a massive focus on writing your own creative pieces, fiction and non-fiction. So if you do love writing creatively, perhaps you could look at English language and literature. But if you just love kind of literature and looking at it from really critical perspectives and looking at a wide range of poetry, prose, drama, A-level English literature may be better for you. So, thank you ever so much for listening. Any of the 4 teachers you see before you can contact, talk to about the subject. There's Mr. Wright, Miss Johnston, myself, Mr. Clark, and Mrs. Gunn. If you have any questions, please do ask us. Thank you very much for listening.